Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Edgar Antillon, a co founder of Guns for Everyone. Guns for Everyone has instructed over 100,000 students in Colorado, including free concealed carry classes and more advanced defensive shooting training. Well, Edgar, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Well, Edgar, let's start with some information about you and Guns for Everyone. What made you want to provide free concealed carry classes?
2010, I got politically involved. I ran for office a couple times, helped run presidential campaigns. In all of that, I seen obviously not a lack, because that's not the right word. There wasn't a lack in political involvement among the gun community. There just wasn't anything for the end user, right? There was a lot of stuff for against the politicians, but there was nothing for the community to get involved with itself, the grassroots, right? It was basically show up to the Capitol and that's about it. And then right around 2012, there was rumors about a bill that was going to be introduced for eliminating concealed carry on campus. And we decided, hey, let's provide students with free classes. And that's kind of where the free classes started from, is on college campuses with college students. And then it kind of just exploded from there. And then we just made them available for everyone, kind of as a protest, protesting the unconstitutional process of humans having to go through this arbitrary training. So that's a little bit about how it got started, and why the free and all that stuff.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It's our natural right as individuals to be able to defend ourselves, defend our families. We shouldn't need, in my opinion, we shouldn't need any type of permit or requirement from some government official to tell us if we're allowed to or not. So, really applaud all the effort to uh, give people their rights back, really, through these free classes, especially in colleges. I mean, that's definitely been a controversial issue for years. It's really unfortunate what we've seen this year, but I mean, the reality is a lot of these college campuses are not safe places, especially for young women. So, limiting their ability to defend themselves, I mean, it's just a disaster in the making.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of these weird, complex issues, right? Because like conceptually, I agree that humans should take all the training that is available to them. Like you should train. You should be responsible with a handgun. The issue is having government telling us how that training should be, how long it ought to be, how we should be tested. These are humans that don't own guns. These are humans that don't conceal. They're not instructors. They don't know about the industry. They don't know the difference between dealing with an attacker and trying to de-escalate a situation, right? Like it's related items, but they're two separate issues. It's really crazy how they humans that don't know about the industry want to regulate the industry. And the Second Amendment. I know it sounds easy and cliche and maybe outplayed, but the Second Amendment. So yeah, it's this weird position to be in. It's just like I agree with you. Humans should take the training, but I wholeheartedly disagree that you should tell us how we should take the training and when to take it and under what conditions we should take it. That's up to me to decide, not up to you to decide.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's no shortage of gun misinformation coming out of the
Yeah,
elected officials. I mean, it's like, to spend long on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, just on the media and just see the ridiculous comments from some of these politicians.
correct.
Just recently with the reversal of the bump stock ban, and
Yeah,
seeing all of those, I mean, it's absolutely wild. Even our own Colorado Attorney General just making so ill-informed statements. And it's
correct.
so sad that these are the people enforcing or making these laws. It's just ridiculous.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this year you're working on a ballot measure to allow cannabis users to get their concealed carry permit. What's your motivation behind this measure?
It's a freedom thing, right? It's coming from somebody who doesn't partake in that vice. I'm actually kind of a square. I don't drink. I don't consume any drugs. I don't smoke. I'm pretty much I'm boring, to be around. But this issue has always kind of plagued my students, right? Because we have a lot of students who either they're caregivers for somebody who consumes it for medical reasons. A lot of parents move to Colorado because now their kids can consume it and use the oils and smoke it for medical reasons, and or elderly with their kids that move to Colorado. So this has been an issue for a very long time, and that's really who it affects the most, is people who have the medical marijuana card. These humans want to defend themselves, but they have to give up that right in order to treat themselves medically. And then there's the recreational side of it, right, where it's I don't agree with the consumption of it. I don't do it myself, but who am I to tell other humans what to do, what not to do, how they do it? Like that. That's not my role. That's not my position. It's not my life. And you should be able to defend yourself while you're consuming. Maybe not at the same time for responsibility's sake, but if you are a consumer, you don't have less rights to life than I do. You don't have less of an ability to defend yourself than I do. So it's a very easy thing, common sense thing is just that's a human who should not be victimized by another by an attacker, by a criminal. So they have the right to self defense just as much as I do, even if I may or may not agree with what they partake in their recreational time. That's not up to the government. That's not up to me. I'm only as free as my neighbors are. So I want my neighbors to be really free, so I can be really free.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's an important issue. Anybody who's bought a legal firearm and has filled out the background check form, they ask you if you're an unlawful user of marijuana. And so many people in Colorado say, "Well, hey, it's legal in Colorado. It's been
Correct.
legal for a long time now. How am I doing this unlawfully?" Of course, there's that separate federal issue.
Correct.
So, it's kind of a tough situation for some people to be in. They're either lying on those forms, which is not necessarily a good thing, right?
Right.
You could put themselves in some sort of legal jeopardy, or then they can't defend themselves. I mean, they can't defend
Yeah.
their families. Like you said, I really like what you said about cannabis, whether you like it or not. It's out there, it's legal. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who abuse alcohol and do some
Yeah.
crazy things, and they're drinking like crazy, causing some
Right.
serious issues, getting in fights, altercations. They can go into the gun store the next day and go buy a
Correct.
firearm. Nobody's asking them if they're using alcohol or not.
Correct.
So, kind of that double standard, and I think it's a sign of the times changing. And I also think the idea of expanding the rights to everybody out in Colorado will help build a community of people who want to defend those rights.
Correct.
If now these people have more vested interest in maybe being a little bit more pro-gun, a little bit more advocates, against this anti-gun lobby.
Yeah, and it shouldn't stop there. I mean, the conversation is always, well, if we let them have it there, then somebody else is going to want it. Like, how bonkers is it that people want freedom? It's not bonkers at all. Like, we shouldn't be restricting humans. We should be punishing and condemning actions, right? Not a whole group of and sect of humans. Again, I'm not a drinker. I agree with you. I think historically and data driven, and factually speaking, alcohol people who consume alcohol are much more violent than people who consume marijuana. That doesn't mean I want every person who consumes alcohol to not carry a gun. Let's condemn and punish individual actions, not humans overall, over something, and that includes marijuana. And yeah, who knows? Maybe in the future we'll take this to something else. This is a freedom thing, right? Again, I cannot be. I can only be as free as my neighbor is. If I want to restrict my neighbor, that means my neighbor can restrict me, and I don't want my neighbor telling me what to do. So that's the mentality here. Is we just want to be free.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what Free State Colorado is all about, expanding the freedom to the individual, creating
Correct.
this liberty that we all deserve, really. I really like what you said about this idea of, grouping people together, right? People say, "Oh, everybody who smokes marijuana, they're all this exact stereotype,
Correct.
and that's why we need to restrict their rights." I mean, that's just such a political tool that people use to
Correct.
try and characterize people instead of looking at people as individuals, look at them as a group of people, and then kind of make decisions based on the group, not on the individual.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, that's really the way it ought to be seen, is just its actions. That's what's sad, is just the politicians, and I don't care which side of the politicians, they do the exact same thing. Is they look for the boogeyman, and then they try and point the finger at the boogeyman, and then all of a sudden, when they get elected, there is no more boogeyman. But society still clings on to that. Society still clings on to that message. So that's the unfortunate thing, is we try and have culture drive politics, but it seems like it's usually the other way around. It's usually the politicians trying to mold culture, and that's an unfortunate thing. Is both sides of the aisle kind of condemn this, because one of the things we're seeing now is people who are pro-gun in government are not necessarily in favor of what we're trying to accomplish here. because they're against the marijuana issue, and so they're in favor of the gun stuff supposedly, but now they don't want the marijuana issue being combined with the gun stuff, and it's just like you have to look at them as this is not a marijuana thing. This is a freedom thing, right? It's more than anything else. This is a freedom thing. So it's interesting to see how the politicians kind of ruin stuff.
Yeah, they're pretty good at doing that, pretty good at ruining things.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is very interesting. I work, or I not work with, but I have a lot of acquaintances, friends, people in the Republican Party, pretty good
yeah,
pro-liberty people. But yeah, some of them have such a blind spot when it comes to marijuana, when it
correct,
comes to these issues. So yeah, I think it's really important to have that philosophical consistency to say, you got to protect the rights of individuals. Maybe you don't agree with what they're doing, but hey, if they're not hurting anybody, they're not actually committing that crime, then they should have just as much rights as anybody else, right?
correct.
So I see that the petitions have been approved. You're currently out there collecting signatures. How's that going with the signature gathering phase of your ballot initiative?
One of the things that I like to do, and this is not a good political strategy, I understand that, is to be vulnerable. And the reality is we're behind. This is tough. It is tough to try and collect 150,000 signatures. You're trying to merge two industries, if you will, two communities, if you will, that oftentimes are separate, right? They're separated. Our fight is the same, though. Our fight is a freedom fight. That industry, both industries are being regulated. I see myself more of the gun guy. I'm definitely not a marijuana guy. I'm a gun guy, and I'm really a freedom guy. And it's hard to combine these two because now you go to the marijuana people and you say, "Hey, I got this. It's going to help you if you want to defend yourself." And they're like, "Well, I don't know about guns." And then you go to the gun people, and you're like, "Hey, I got this. It's going to help expand our gun rights." And they're like, "Well, I don't know about this." So it's been tough, honestly. It's we're a little bit behind, but we're hoping that with more exposure, such as this, which I really appreciate, we kind of get the word out there, and we let people know that yeah, we're still gathering these signatures, and it's still moving forward, and it hasn't died. It's kind of an uphill battle, but I think if we all do it together, it's going to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. 100% can agree with you more. It's so interesting because if you have ever been to one of these dispensaries down in like the Denver metro area or anything, a lot of them have armed guards. They have guys with a firearm on them, with the vest on, and they're all tactical, geared out, and everything like that. And the way the law is written now, maybe they're not necessarily concealed carrying, they probably have a concealed carry permit, or something like that,
Yeah,
or are a licensed security guard. So technically, legally, they're not supposed to be even allowed to consume the
correct.
product of the place they're protecting. I mean, it seems so odd that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. It's laws, it's politicians, it's humans that don't know about the subject matter, trying to regulate the subject matter, and it's you end up with these really dumb laws that really shouldn't exist.
So it looks like I was on the Secretary of State website. You have until August 5th to turn in the
Obviously,
petitions. And I know that they require, 124,000 signatures or so, just over that. But like you
yeah,
said, you got to get more than that. You got to get
correct,
close to that 150, 200,000 number because so many of them are going to be thrown out. Somebody's got
correct.
bad handwriting. Somebody forgets where they live or puts the wrong zip code or something like that. It happens. I've seen it. So it's tough. It really is an uphill battle, but it's great that there's this grassroots, activism out there of these people like yourself getting involved and, really using this form of democracy or this form of representative government that we have in Colorado that not a lot of other places have, this citizen-led initiative process where you can go out there, get something on the ballot, present it to the entire state of Colorado, all the voters out there. Pretty cool that we have that here in Colorado. I think sometimes people take it for granted and don't realize it is pretty unique. It's pretty special. And although 124,000 signatures is a lot, relatively speaking, to get something in front of all of the voters in Colorado, it's pretty cool that we have that ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And going through the process is kind of a headache, and I know why a lot of people are kind of deterred from it, and maybe even filling out the signatures, people are like, we're never going to accomplish this. But I think we should take advantage of the fact that it does exist. We should take advantage of the fact that it's a process that we have. Right? Like I consider myself to be more of an anarchist more than anything else, but I have to admit that I live in a society that isn't an anarchy society. So I have to take advantages of all of the leverage that I have, and this is one of them, right? This is one of them where I want to present it to the people, because I'll take a loss from the people more than I will take from government, right? When legislatures make laws and they just shove them down your throat, that's not people speaking. I'd much rather have a disagreement with my neighbor and us come to a mutual understanding as to why we disagree than have a politician just tell me just because I say so. And that's why this process is very, very unique. And I'll accept this loss, and maybe we regroup and educate much more than I will from a politician. Every time it's from a politician, it doesn't sit well. When it's my neighbors telling me like, I don't know if I understand you correctly, or that's a me issue, I need to educate you better, or I don't agree with it, but I understand where you're coming from. And that's the other side of this process, is that it's actually humans that are living amongst you that are going through this process and giving you a yes or a no, and maybe sometimes even giving you a reason. Politicians don't do that. They don't give you that luxury. If you've ever been in those meetings, committee meetings, they don't even bother to pay attention to you. They're having lunch. They're all over the place. They couldn't care less about what you're saying. And this initiative is a better way for me to win or lose. It's more satisfaction that way.
Nice. I like that perspective. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, because it's like you're really going after just the people, right? Communicating this idea to the people, getting them engaged, getting them involved, dealing with their objections rather than if, like you said, this politician who's getting confronted with lobbyists every day, who's getting big checks to their reelection campaign and has this model legislation sent over from New York down to
Right.
Denver for them to introduce and sign to restrict our rights. So
Yeah,
definitely much more satisfying and much more valuable. It really is.
correct. Yeah.
So if people want to volunteer, are you looking for volunteers for people to carry the petitions or to help go out and collect those signatures or anything like that?
Yeah, all of that information is on our website, gunsforeveryone.com. Last time, this is the second time we've tried doing this, and we're probably going to try it again if we fail. Obviously, we don't want to have the mentality of if we fail, but I'm a realist. Like life is real, and it is a potential that we fail. So last time we did a whole separate website. This way is just on our regular gunsforeveryone.com website. And you can find the information there and fill out the form if you want to volunteer, and then usually within 48 hours we'll reach out to you and see where you can be fit in and do the petition and all that stuff. That's been tough too, finding volunteers and getting people out there, right? Like everybody after COVID has been just very reserved. I don't know if reserved is the right word, but just very standoffish is too aggressive. So, but it's very just to myself, right? Like that's been, so it's been. I've seen the difference between the first time we tried doing this in 16, I believe, is when we tried doing this the very first time, and then now doing it. There's a huge culture difference in that volunteering. So, if you still have the bug for it, we definitely could use the help.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's important, I think, to go on the offense, to fight for our rights, fight for our liberties. Like you said, push back against these politicians because we see what they're capable of, right? We see what these politicians have done. Unfortunately, 2024, this was one of the worst years in the state legislature for
Yeah,
anti-gun laws. So I'd love to get your perspective, some information from you about House Bill 1174. This is the new bill, unfortunately signed by our authoritarian governor to
yeah.
create new restrictions on an individual's ability to get a concealed handgun permit. So can you tell us a little bit about this new concealed carry requirements?
Yeah, it's going to require more training. It's going to require forced training, is really what it is. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, more training." That's not a bad thing. It's a forced issue. They want us to meet certain topics. There's about 5 or 6 topics that we have to discuss in class, which takes up valuable time from teaching you about self defense. Right, when you consider what concealed carry or what a concealed carry class ought to be about, it should be focused on self-defense. You are defending yourself. You're how to carry the firearm properly. Like I should not be talking about how you store your gun at your house in a concealed carry class. That's an important topic to have a discussion about for sure, right? It's I don't need a law to have the conversation, but when I'm out on the range teaching humans how to shoot a gun, We don't have the time to sit and discuss other issues. So there's an 8-hour requirement. You have to pass 2 tests, both objective, not subjective, which is a horrible thing about this. Standardized testing are very objective and not subjective, which means it doesn't matter who you are as an individual. You have to pass the same thing that somebody else has to pass. So now Granny with arthritis has to perform the same way as Tactical Joe, who's 21 years of age, and has got all the ability in the world. Like you can't test them the same way. You just simply cannot. So now you have to pass a written test. Now you have to pass a live fire test. Written test by 80%, live fire test by 70%, and then refreshers every 5 years. You now have to take a refresher class as well. One of the biggest issues with this bill is how confusing it is. It has 2 effective dates. It's August 7th and then July 1st. And they want you to believe that it's July 1st, but if you read the bill, all of the definitions come into effect August 7th. The portion of the criteria doesn't come into effect until July 1st. So a lot of people are like, oh, this is not till July 1st. But the definitions of what all the classes mean and all the requirements mean come into effect August 7th. So so now when people go look at the existing bill and they go look at the definitions, and sheriffs are already saying some really dumb stuff about the bill and how they're going to implement it. So it's been confusing. We Guns for Everyone, we're just going to pretend like it's going to come into effect, all of it August 7th, and we're just going to do it all August 7th, because I already know some sheriffs are already planning to do this August 7th, and it's going to be bad for a lot of students who take classes, and their sheriffs are going to say, no, it doesn't meet the new requirements. So it's very confusing. It's going to put a lot of instructors in this really weird position where, like, I thought it was July 1st of next year, but it's no, August 7th of this year. And you try and argue that, and you'll lose the time in court. So we're just not going to play with that. And I encourage a lot of people to kind of go read the laws. We have a lot of information about this on our website and how confusing it is. And I hate to take this position, but like we might as well start doing everything August 7th, because we're debating, is it July 1st, 2025, or is it August 7th of this year? And it's just like, it's going to go into play either way. Let's fight. If we are going to fight, let's fight these guys on the other stuff that they're trying to. I know some sheriffs that are trying to push some stuff because of this bill that is not within the bill or in the spirit of the bill. That's the stuff we need to fight the sheriffs on. So it's a confusing bill. It's more restrictions. It's more obstacles for humans to get their permits. So it's an unfortunate thing that we're seeing here.
So what about people who already have their concealed carry permit? How is this going to affect how's it going to affect them?
Yeah, so technically there is no grandfather clause, but you don't have to go through the new hoops either. So once you already have the permit, you just have to go through the refresher requirements. So when it's time for you to refresh, you just have to take a refresher course before you do the renewal. Certificates are no longer valid for 10 years. It used to be a 10-year thing. Now it's valid. Now they're only going to be valid for 1 year. So if you do go take a refresher class, make sure that it's not before 1 year before you have to renew. But yeah, if you already have your existing period, it's not like you don't have a permit once this comes into effect and then you have to take a class. No, you already have the permit. You just have to meet the new renewal requirements every 5 years.
Wow. So have you seen like a rush of people wanting to get their permit before this law takes effect?
It hasn't been a huge rush, but yeah, there's been a small increase in people who want to get this done before that happens. And yeah, I encourage people to take the classes, not just because of this, but for responsibility issues. And I hope that a lot of humans understand you also have to go apply for the permits before the restrictions happen. Unfortunately, a lot of people come take the class thinking that that's it. And I'd say about 60% of people that go to concealed carry classes don't actually end up following through with getting their permit. So you also have to go apply. So if you already took a class and you have the certificate and it's still a valid certificate, go apply before all of this goes into effect so you have that permit.
Wow. Yeah, good advice there for sure. You keep mentioning a sheriff. So, for the longest time, sheriffs have had so much of the responsibility over determining who gets a permit, when it used to be more of a, may issue or shall issue type
Yeah.
of permit. So how is this new law? Is it still a lot of this up to the sheriff in terms of how they're issuing the permits, or is it pretty much controlled entirely at the state level?
Sheriffs have never had control over how they issue the permits or what the requirements are. It's always been controlled at the state level. The state law does not allow the sheriffs to regulate or restrict the issuance of permits beyond what the law already says. So they still don't have that discretion. They have to issue the permit according to what the state law says. The problem with that is you have what 64 individual sheriffs, and some of them are well intentioned, and I have to be objective with this, right? Because I talk to a lot of these people, and some of them are actually not malicious; they're just ignorant. And I don't say ignorant in a negative way. I mean actually ignorant, right? They actually don't know what the law actually means or entails. They have somebody else try and read it for them, and they don't really worry about it. And then there's some sheriffs who are actually malicious. There are actually some sheriffs out there that try and make up their own rules. We see that right now already, where sheriffs are requiring people to go shoot. That's not a thing right now, but they've been trying to implement that for a very long time. Having to students take a refresher class to renew. That's not a thing right now. It did pass and it will be in the future, but you've had sheriffs that have broken the law, and violated this law for a very long time. We had to sue Larimer County, a Republican sheriff, during COVID because of his misunderstanding of what the law was. We ended up having that all reversed, and he ended up doing what he was supposed to do, but not after we had to sue the person. So this is the issue with having the sheriffs take care of it. Is it's good that the excuse me, the state of Colorado, the CBI isn't involved with it, but at the same time you have 64-ish different jurisdictions trying to interpret the law and trying to decide for their county. Some of them care about the law and some of them don't care about the law. And then very rarely we have sheriffs who don't care about the law in our favor, who are actually loosening up the requirements and all that stuff. So that's the battle with guns for everyone, anyways, where we deal in all of the counties. We're the largest handgun training company in the state of Colorado. We instruct thousands of students every single year. We've instructed over 100,000 students in the state of Colorado since 2012. So we interact with these sheriffs, and it's a battle when you have them trying to read what the law means, and then you have to explain it to them, and you have to try and educate them, and sometimes you have to sue them and get the attorneys involved, and it's just a pain. That's the one thing I don't like about having the sheriffs have control over it, is they don't all agree on what it needs to be. This time, I've reached out to the Sheriff's Association. So hopefully we get a meeting, and even if we don't agree on what the law says, like we all understand what the battles are. I want to know why they don't get it. Are they understaffed? Do we need a help? Do they need um, attorneys to help them out? Like we need to figure out what the obstacles are going to be so that ultimately the people, the students, are able to get their permit without any hiccups.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it seems like there's some complications, and yeah, I can only imagine having 64 different sheriff's departments, and then you have the state, and then you have all these other people
Right.
involved. The confusion and the lack of clarity that's going to exist with this rollout here.
Yeah.
Government's good at doing that, creating confusion
Oh
and
yeah.
chaos for
Oh yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I imagine your concealed carry class is probably your most popular class that you offer at Guns for Everyone. What else? What other types of classes do you offer?
Yeah, it's the concealed carry class by far. That's quote unquote the flagship product. But like we say in class, that's a check the box type of class. That's although we provide you with correct, factual, data driven, science driven classes, right? We don't tell you what's cool and what's tactical, and we don't do the LARPing stuff. We do the live fire classes. We have four different types of live fire classes. We have the what we call the fundamentals to intuitive defensive shooting. We have an advanced pistol handling, which is a little bit more of the extreme side of self-defense. You got shot, you only have one hand. How do you reload with one hand? How do you clear malfunctions with one hand? Extreme precision, like unrealistic, sort of unrealistic precision, so you can test your limits. And then unorthodox position class, and that's just what it sounds like. Is you're not always going to be standing up. Most of the time you will be, but unfortunately, sometimes you're on the floor. What if you're on the floor, but you're with your head facing the bad guy on the ground? Or what if you're on your chest? How do you unholster there? So the unorthodox position, seated position, kneeling position, that type of stuff. And then the two-person arm defense. We've seen enough evidence to where this is a subject that people ought to kind of keep in mind. We don't see it a lot, but two good people trying to fight an attacker and learning how to deal with the secondary good guy with the gun and how to work together and all that stuff. So those are the four live fire classes that we offer. And then we also have an intro to emergency casualty care. So it's just a very basic 4-hour keep the blood inside while the medical professionals show up. This is very much geared towards an urban environment, city stuff. Not I'm in the wild and I have 2 hours before them. But no, that's not it. It's just something happened in the city. The ambulance is 5-10 minutes away. Let's just keep the blood inside, stabilize it. And then we also hold mental health seminars. One of the unfortunate things about gun ownership and gun violence is that a great majority of gun violence is suicide, 60 to 70%, depending on which statistics you're looking at. So 60 to 70% of gun violence is suicide. It's an important conversation to have. So we have these mental health seminars. I'm actually a member of the advisory board for CU Emergency Health's Firearms Injury Prevention Initiative. And that's usually what we talk about. It's nonpartisan. We don't talk politics. We don't talk policy. We talk about how the community can solve the issue of negative outcomes with firearms, and that's one of them is the suicide thing. In fact, that's one of the biggest things is suicides when it comes to negative outcomes with firearms. So those mental health seminars are we try to hold them about quarterly, but important conversation to have.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Very important. Man, I really appreciate all the work you do,
Yeah.
especially the mental health part. That's so important these days. It seems more than ever, and just all the training, everything like that. How can people support Guns for Everyone?
Really, money. If people want to support us, money is the biggest. We are a 501(c)(3). We're moving away from the for-profit nature of this, and trying to go strictly 501(c)(3). The 501(c)(3) organization has always been around. We certify firearms instructors. We're basically an alternative to the NRA. So our instructor development courses have a 50% success rate. So now it's a very difficult course to go through, and that's through the 501(c)(3). We hold competitions, but because it is a 501(c)(3), donations are tax deductible, and offering classes to thousands of students costs us roughly about $100,000 a year. It's a very expensive thing to do, and it doesn't seem like much, but once you consider we have to pay for facilities, we have to pay for the documents, we have to pay for the ink, we have to pay for the printers when they break and stuff like that. So it seems like small stuff, but it costs about $100,000 a year for us to operate. So donations really are the best way. If not, then letting people know about us. That's kind of the second thing. Is if you let humans know about us, the more people know about us, the more people come to us, take the classes, and maybe they donate on your part as well. We through the 501(c)(3), we have you can donate a one-time type stuff, or you could do a monthly. A lot of people do monthly because it's $3 a month, $4 a month, $5 a month. Some people even do just $1 a month, which is $12 a year. But you combine that with the other 10 people that are doing $3 a month, it quickly adds up. So that's an alternative for a lot of us that are kind of struggling with the new economy and trying to adapt to the market. Doing $1 a month helps us out. So I hate to be shameless about it, but it's really money, how the best way to support us, and then let people know about us.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You got to have money to pay for everything. That's for sure.
It's the nature of the beast. I'm a capitalist. I love the free market, but I understand that sometimes it's painful to be a capitalist. Like I see why the socialists and the communists really love that model, because you take other people's money, uh, working hard for to draw the people in and to pay you and all that. So that's a lot of hard work. So it gets expensive though. It gets expensive. I prefer it this way in the long term. So yeah, it's pricey.
Last question for you, Edgar.
Yeah.
Our gun rights have been under assault this last year and years before that. What is your primary piece of advice for people who want to protect our right to keep and bear arms and even expand it?
Yeah, this is where it gets tough for me not to use bad words. I told you I'm going to try really hard not to use bad words on your platform. Usually that's not a promise I keep, but it quit being sissies about it. Quit making excuses. And I hate to I'm not being as aggressive as I want to be, out of respect to your platform, but it's people got to stop being complacent. People need to quit making excuses, right? Because it's always the excuse. Well, I don't want to do this because Hillary Clinton, and I don't want to do this because Joe Biden, and my toe hurt on Tuesday, and because it hurts on Tuesday, I can't show up to the Zoom thing, and I can't. Why am I going to do this? Like it's always excuse, 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 excuse. Like we got to end that stuff. You got to grow up, grow a pair, put on your big boy panties, and go out there and fight. This mentality of, oh well, they're gonna do what they're gonna do anyways, is that's not necessarily true. I don't want to be unrealistic about this. We killed the assault weapons ban. I know a lot of that has to do with pro gun Democrats. We got to give credit to the pro gun Democrats. 100%. I think we got saved because of the pro-gun Democrats. Because if we look at how many humans showed up to the committee meetings, it wasn't that many, compared to how many gun owners there are in Colorado. If you look at how many, we've instructed over 100,000 people in the state of Colorado. 500-ish people showed up to the assault weapons ban. It sounds like a lot until you're like, Guns for Everyone alone instructed over 100,000 students. That I'm not a huge on math, but I think that's less than 1% of the people that we've instructed. Um, so that's not a good thing. That's not a positive thing. A lot of it has to do with the excuses. So that would be my biggest thing, is excuse. And also, don't run away from this. I know the economy is getting a lot of people to run away. Like I can't say much about that. It's affected us a lot. But if you're running away from Colorado because of this, all you're doing is just taking your problem somewhere else. You got to fight here in Colorado, because this problem is going to follow you. This problem is going to be in Texas. Texas is not as pro gun as it makes it out to be on the internet. This problem is going to follow you to the next state, because all you're doing is just taking your mentality to a different state, and your complacency to a different state. At some point, we'll run out of places to run to, if you don't fight. So you got to be involved and quit making excuses.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, quit making excuses, that's it, show up, put in the work, and yeah, it's not easy, but you can't give up.
Mhm.
I think in many ways I'm relatively optimistic with the failure of the assault weapons ban and some of these other gun bills that they tried to push this year. Sure, they
Yeah,
got 8 bad bills through, but there would have been 8 more if they could, right? Type of
yeah,
thing. So the fact that there's at least in Colorado, we have that opportunity to have some pro-gun Democrats in there. We have some people outside of the political arena that are putting pressure on these politicians that are connected to them, that are maybe kind of holding them back a little bit from this full agenda, shows
correct,
that we can win, right? We can win. So imagine,
correct,
like you said, imagine instead of 500, there's 1,000, 2,000 people showing
correct,
up, and not just there, but to town hall meetings, to city council meetings, to
correct.
county meetings, and getting up in arms about this, no pun intended, but getting people activated, motivated,
Yeah,
and not giving up. Don't give up, because exactly, I hear it all the time, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves. People say, "Well, I'm going to leave Colorado. it's become too authoritarian, progressive, and whatever word you want to use. But like you said, it doesn't matter where you go. I mean, I hear from people in South Dakota, the same problems are happening out there. They're trying to do it
Right.
in Texas. They're trying to do it everywhere.
Right.
So you got to fight somewhere. So fight where you can win, fight where you're going to be the strongest, where you have the best chance of fighting. And if you're part of this community here in Colorado, then dig your heels in and let's go, you know?
Yeah, and here's the other thing is fighting also includes having conversations with people you disagree with. Being in your echo chamber the entire time is only telling other people that feel like you that you feel like them. Right? Like one of the things that I love to make fun of is when people post their favorite TV person and they say how awesome they were, and my reply is always, oh, the guy I agree with said stuff that I agree with, so that person's awesome. Like, yeah, of course, because they're saying stuff that you agree with. How about you listen to a human that you don't agree with? And this is beneficial for us, right? This is one of the reasons why I'm a board member for the Firearms Injury Prevention Initiative. There's people there that don't like guns, but now we have a conversation about an issue, and they get to see humans who do like guns that are wanting to end gun violence, maybe not a policy way, maybe not the way they would traditionally do it. But I'm also seeing people who hate guns come to the table and say, like, I don't really want to take your guns away. I just don't know what else to do. Like, I didn't see you guys showing up to the meetings, and I thought you didn't care. So I said, this is the only way we can do it, this because they don't care. And then now when we show up, they're like, oh, you do care, that we're working together to try and end gun violence and suicides outside of political issues, outside of policy. Like, not everybody who hates guns and not everybody who is gun neutral or a Democrat or whatever adjective you want to use, or supportive. I'm Mexican, so, like, some of these words are difficult for me. I'm ESL. You can leave that in, by the way. You ain't got to cut that out. Uh, all of these words that you want to use as a descriptor for these humans is uh, a lot of it is just misunderstanding, right? A lot of it, like, they don't all want to take my guns away. Some of them, they just don't understand, or they don't see us at the meetings. Having conversations with these people, we may not agree. We may not agree, but at least we get to understand where we're coming from, and then have that real conversation and hold each other accountable, and let these people know why policy isn't going to change anything. We know why it's not going to change anything, and we can go to the politicians all day long and they're not going to care. But the person wearing the red shirt, we may not agree, but hey, we've never had this conversation. Why do you feel the way that you feel? And I'll let you know why I feel the way we feel. We may not agree, and that's okay. But at least we understand each other. There's been plenty of humans who say this is the only reason why I want policy is because I've never seen you guys show up. I've never had this conversation. And that's my opportunity to be like, well, you never came to us. So, like, it kind of goes both ways. But now we're here, we're having the conversation. So fighting also means having conversations with people you disagree with, even if it's just to understand each other. That kind of kills this whole division thing. It kind of kills the whole division thing. I think we're both more on the same side, and that's I don't want people to die with guns. I agree with that. Like, I 100% agree with that. I don't want good people to die with guns. I don't want people to commit suicide with guns. Like, I'm with that 100%. I don't want politicians doing it. So why do you want politicians to do it? And having that conversation, that understanding that, and there's more of a community than just us yelling at each other.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think that's something like you said, like you kind of mentioned earlier, this post-COVID world we live in, people are so disconnected from each other, and now everybody's spending so much more time online, it seems, with all the
Yeah.
different social media platforms, that if people get stuck in those echo chambers and they keep hearing the same thing over and over again, and they start dehumanizing other people who they've never met, but they stereotype them. They say, "Oh, they must be this way. You must be, some crazy person
Right.
because you disagree with me." And that's extremely unhealthy and leading to this
Right.
incredible division we're seeing, which is not going to make things better. So I really
Right.
appreciate what you said there, because it's an important thing to remember that, everybody's just people. People want the same things. Nobody wants this violence in the streets. People want to have a healthy, safe community.
Yeah.
And what can we do to understand each other a little bit better and connect better, and, stop demonizing each other so much? I think that's really
Correct.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome, Edgar. Well, hey, I really appreciate the time you took to speak to me, get this information out there. I hope people will sign up for your classes at Guns for Everyone, and maybe get some volunteers to carry some of those petitions around, get those signatures, but get involved. And definitely thank you for your time, sir.
Absolutely, I appreciate you.
All right, take care.